that again because Esper control against Blue White control, I think it does favor Esper. So we see Beck. We join this game. We got Jaces everywhere. Crazy Jaces everywhere.
Yeah, so this is kind of new territory. We have a Jace on both sides of the battlefield. We saw that earlier. And this is, it's a new board state. And I'm not, before it used to kind of be the first Jace out was the important Jace. Now you get to have both players having Jaces.
Did you see that? Nass was about to cast Attention Sphere on the Jace. He tapped the 3 mana and he said, I don't think so. I'm going to activate this Jace first.
Yes. All right.
That could have gotten awkward quick.
So negate or Essence Scatter into land. It looks like Matt's hand is a bunch of syncopates. At least 2.
Counter magic doesn't seem to be the issue here for Nass.
No, he needs to make sure that he's still hitting lands. I think that's why he's going to take that pile. Remember, lands are just so important in this matchup. We are post-board, however. Beck is up 1 game. We've seen Esper do really well against Blue-White. One of the questions is, what are the cards out of the board for Bradley?
So we see 2 copies of Duress over here, 2 Glare of Heresy, Blood Baron of Escopa, Supreme Verdict, 2 copies of Pith and Needle actually, a Notion Thief and a Gate, 2 Jace Memory Adept, 2 Blind Obedience, and a Thoughtseize. So I think those 3 discard spells are going to come in, and 2 Duress and a Thoughtseize, and 2 Jace Memory Adepts as well.
He has the Memory Adepts, who probably will also bring in the Notion Thief. I mean, if you have it on your board, it's got to be for this matchup.
Yeah, there can be stories to tell, as he's going to lead off here with a Thoughtseize against Beck.
So Matt can decide whether or not Thoughtseize will trade with a Negate or a Resolve. Depends whether Matt has a card worth protecting. It looks like Matt has a Jace Memory Adept in his hand. He has 3 in his board. And yeah, 1 has been boarded in. And he's going to go ahead and lay out a hand. So it's 2 Essence Scatters, 2 Syncopates, a Negate, and a Jace. You have to think the Jace is getting taken here.
I would be surprised if it did not. Nass basically saying I would like to keep up some counter magic here if you'll let me.
Some counter magic.
Yeah.
5 pieces.
So again,
Matt's gonna run into the problem here actually that he may end up drawing into 8 counter spells and have to discard them at some point.
Tough life.
Well, counter spells are great, but they don't actually progress your board state very often. If Matt doesn't, I guess what I'm saying is if Matt doesn't keep drawing lands, it's hard, then that hand becomes pretty bad, actually.
All right, so Beck decides to take the Negate, and let's see if he has a follow-up play that he wants to force through with that discard spell. He's going to go with 2 mana, and he's going to go with... Let's see, what is that there?
Glare of Heresy.
Okay, so that's going to take care of the Detention Sphere. And now Jason's going to take down, so now you see
Dissolve.
Syncopate, Dissolve, and Detention Sphere. How do you split this?
Well, the only thing Matt has to protect here is the Jace. He has a bunch of counter spells. That Detention Sphere will take care of the Jace. I think you take away the unconditional counter spell. So I think Matt's doing this exactly right.
Okay. Tough split, 3 spells show up. Never easy. I mean, the big question here is we haven't seen Bradley play a land yet, so maybe he was looking for lands with that Jace and hasn't found one? Puts the cards to the bottom. All right, there's a land. It's a temple.
So now he only has 1 mana up. This gives Matt a turn to resolve Jace Memory Adept.
Mm-hmm.
Bradley may have had an untapped land. Want to see whether or not he got a Negate, whether or not he has a Negate there. So the Jace is going to resolve, but Bradley does have a Detention Sphere for it. Both players know that. We may see Matt just +1 the Jace if he decides to play it as a result.
Just a super expensive cantrip. I mean, you might not have a choice.
Advantage. It's more than a cantrip
that's true.
Because it forces Bradley to use a Detention Sphere on it.
Also, it can mill the top card from Bradley's deck, and Bradley kept it on top with the scry. So, small thing, but does matter.
Matt does not have any Glare of Heresies. Actually doesn't have any way to blow up with the Detention Sphere, so once the Detention Sphere hits and takes that Jace, the Jaces will be just gone.
Here's the tough thing, too, right now for Matt, is you see Matt is kind of being deliberate with his play right now. You see that Bradley's up a game. You see the clock in the middle of the screen, 28. We're underneath 30 minutes here. Nass, if he wants to win this match, he needs to win 2 games, as he's going to play Azorius Guildgate and pass the turn back. It's a very real thing in this matchup.
Yeah. I mean, Matt has to play quickly. One of the reasons he plays the Jace. He knows this is going to get detention sphered. There's some information to be gained, though. So the card that Bradley scried to the top was Swamp, which means that, if possible, Matt would really like to keep Bradley off lands. Granted, Matt has no way to guarantee lands for himself right now.
So there's our detention sphere. There goes the Jace Memory Adapter. We saw that coming from the previous turn, as Nass is going to untap his lands. Bradley going to leave 2 mana available, but does not hit a land, so he really, really needs some.
So Matt has added to his own hand. He now has 7 cards, but he does no land drop to it. He has a detention sphere, and he drew an Etherling.
You go for it here? Well, that question's been answered.
You said you needed to win fast, right? Let's see if he has the Essence Scatter.
He can pay for Syncopate for 1, too. Yep, pay for it.
Did Bradley keep in the verdicts? Is this getting swept or detention sphered? Most likely.
I can't imagine this would be living right now.
I mean, we know that he had the 1 detention sphere for the Jace, but
Gonna tick down here. There's a Temple. There's a Hollow Fountain, and there's a Goblet Shrine. So he's found lands.
Yep.
But does he have an answer? Does he have an answer to Aetherling? As you see, Nass is gonna have to separate this somehow. I think.
Yep.
That the best separation here? You do. I think you do it with one with the Temple, right?
Put the Temple in a pile by itself?
No, I think you do. I think you do Temple with a land and then another, and then like he's gonna get 2 lands regardless.
So
you
you
like
think the shock lands are the best?
Yeah, you want one of the lands to come to play tap, given the option.
Depends how late you think the game is going, but I would tend to agree.
Hero's Downfall. Gonna take care of the Aetherling. There is your tap Temple. Scry. Keep it. It looks like. Yes, says Bradley.
I don't actually think the scrying matters very much in this matchup, so yeah, I do like the way the lands were split.
Okay. Nass draws a card. Remember, Nass has a ton of counter magic in his hand. Just drew Sphinx's Revelation right now.
He has Syncopate, Essence Scatter. That we know of.
Looks like he's gonna go revving.
Leaving 1 mana up, he does play Dispels out of the board.
Okay.
So that's actually the only 1 mana spell he plays. He also, I believe Bradley has 2 mana up, so he's playing around Syncopate this way. He is still safe right now. Bradley's missed a couple land drops. Well, he's somewhat safe.
Yeah.
Bradley could play Etherling if Matt taps out for this Revelation.
Using the term safe loosely.
Yeah, it's not entirely safe.
Yeah, I wouldn't feel great. I'll say that. So let's see. It might just be big rev tap out. But you can tell Nass is a little bit scared right now. He's actually down a game too.
Yeah,
he's got to really tread carefully.
Exactly. He's deciding whether or not to leave that 1 mana up. He is, so it's a Revelation for 3. This will let Bradley resolve the spell of his choice.
Oh, the shields are down.
Matt draws 2 lands and an Azorius Charm. Okay, he hadn't played his land for the turn, so now he has 2 mana up, so he still has 2 Syncopates and 2 Essence Scatters. Which means that Etherling still probably doesn't get to resolve.
Still a Jace for Nass to deal with, though. That's going to go up for now. There's another Temple from Beck. Going to keep that card again.
The name of the game right now is to continue hitting land drops, remember. Both players need to draw, just keep hitting lands so that when the counter spell war happens, they can fight it as well as possible.
Cycle Azorius Charm in the end step for Nass. He's going to untap and draw. Drew a Jace off of that one.
I actually think Matt's in the better position right now because he has more lands in play.
Okay.
As surprising as it,
I can buy that.
I think Matt's well equipped for a counter war right now. I don't think Bradley's really going to be able to push any spells through. Matt has so much counter magic.
All right. Jace is going to resolve. Let me ask you kind of an interesting question, because I know that in the block tournament for the Pro Tour, there was a lot of fighting over Jaces. With the new legendary rule, both players can have Jaces in play. Do you think it's worth fighting over Jaces now, like with counter magic and making it so those don't resolve? Because I haven't seen a lot of people counter those.
Well, I think what you're actually fighting over is land drops. You want to make sure that you're hitting all your land drops. Why you were fighting over Jaces in block is that they allowed one player to hit their land drops, but the other player didn't. So if you think you can keep your opponent off lands, then yeah, I do still like fighting over Jace. But you have limited counter spells, and the spell you really are fighting over is Etherling.
So Nass is going to be targeted by Duress. We see double Syncopate, double Essence Scatter. We knew about those. We got a Detention Sphere and a Jace that are new cards and new information for Burke. So what are we going to do here?
This is one of the advantages of playing black in your deck, is that you get access to cards like Thoughtseize and Duress, which are just excellent in this matchup.
Yeah, they really, really are. Now, when we were watching a little bit earlier between Galcano and Castle, Galcano had access to Ashiok in his deck list. You take a look at Bradley Burke's deck list throughout his 75, none of the new Planeswalker.
No, he's gotten a lot less value out of his black cards. He's decided to play them for Blood Baron of Vizcopas and Thoughtseize effects. The Thoughtseize effects will still be good in this matchup, but remember, because he doesn't have that Ashiok, the game is just about Etherlings now.
Okay. Which it seems like he's comfortable with. You're comfortable enough.
The trick to resolving Etherling, as you remember, is having the most lands.
So Jace goes bye-bye. You see a Goblet Shrine, an Island, and a Thoughtseize of the cards that are turned over.
One way, though, to fight over Etherling, if you can ultimate a Jace, that's a way to get an Etherling into play.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess Jace isn't completely irrelevant.
So let's see what else Burke is setting up here. All right, so there's a Pithing Needle. Interesting.
So Detention Sphere, Jace, Syncopate, Essence Scatter. Matt actually, well, he can Syncopate it for 4 if he wanted to tap out Bradley, but the problem is that Bradley knows Matt's hand.
Mm-hmm.
Matt would be doing that with the hope of Jacing into a Etherling if he did that.
Now, future Jaces that are drawn for Burke, he can't use them either. So how do we feel about Pithing Needle in this matchup, especially, symmetrical?
I mean,
stopping Jaces.
It stops. I think Bradley was a little scared of the fact that Matt was going to get to ultimate the Jace first. Now it's not really a thing.
Okay.
We may see Matt Detention Sphere the Needle at some point.
Back and forth we go.
Yeah, I think if Matt, he's a little nod of the head there. Wasn't too happy about drawing a land. So basically, the time when you have to go aggro with a control deck in the situation like make a play is when you stop drawing lands. If you keep drawing lands, you're just going to keep making land drops.
Sure.
But now as we see, Matt didn't draw a land. First turn without a land, he's going to go aggro. He wants to hit more land drops, and he's going to need to get the Pithing Needle off the table for that to happen.
Well, Detention Sphere is the choice of the day there from Nass. So he's going to go up to that Pithing Needle, which means that Jace is really important to me. So down goes Jace, top 3 cards coming. You got a Syncopate, you've got an Island, and you've got a second Island. So lands versus spells, and just like you said, the lands go immediately in Nass's hand. Doesn't even think about it.
If you can, the trick to winning the Etherling fight is to have more lands. Remember, Matt's hand is Syncopate, Essence Scatter. He's looking okay for a counterspell fight.
Mm-hmm.
Bradley has wisely been taking the negates. Those are the best cards in a counterspell fight.
The hard counters.
Well, maybe they're not as good as dispels, but they're very good.
So Burke doing some counting here. You see the clock winding down almost to 20 minutes. See some mana being tapped. Might be revelation time for Burke. This would be for 3, if that's what he has. Looks like he's trying to figure out if he can do anything around a Syncopate here. You see there's a lot of onus on resolving Sync's Revelation here for him, where it seems like to me, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that it's important, but it's not as important as it used to be, like in this particular matchup.
You want to resolve it if you don't have lands.
Yeah.
I think that's really the key. You need to make your land drops. So when you're running out of lands, that's when you have to Revelation.
So Rev for 3 is going to resolve. Nass doesn't even put up a fight. Could have Syncopated if he wanted to, chose not to. Let's Burke draw those 3 cards, gain that 3 life, and go back to his turn.
Yeah, the one thing Matt wants to make sure is, remember, they're just preparing for the Etherling War. The key to the Etherling War is to have a lot of lands. Usually you have enough counterspells because you actually aren't spending your counterspells on anything.
Sure.
So if Matt fights, he runs the problem if he starts fighting over Revelations, he may actually run out of counterspells. And then the land advantage he's been building is no longer important if he actually doesn't have enough counterspells. Basically what you're doing with lands is you're creating the ability to cast. You're trying to get the ability to cast. Whoever can cast the most counterspells will win the fight.
Well, it's time to have a fight. Now here's a Syncopate. Going to target that Jace Memory Adept. As if that resolves, it's going to be very difficult for Nass to win. You see, Burke has been doing a lot of counting of Nass's mana to make sure that, hey, what can your Syncopates look like? What can I do to resolve this game-winning Planeswalker?
So he wisely waited until a turn where Matt tapped for Detention Sphere to make this play. I really like that.
Negate going to target the Syncopate. Negate resolves. Syncopate goes to the graveyard. Jace still on the stack.
Yeah, Matt has no way right now to remove the Jace.
Yeah, and Jace has resolve, so mill 10. There goes a Jace among other cards. Elspeth as well.
This was really well played by Bradley. He waited. He kind of just used that Pithing Needle to get in a position where Matt would have to Detention Sphere it and therefore spend 3 of his mana. It helped Bradley basically get ahead on mana, even though he was behind on lands.
Yeah. And he was very, very patient. He picked the spot well here, got his Jace into play, and now he needs to ride it to victory. Nass going to draw his card, draws a Plains. Jace going to go down immediately.
He needs to find a Detention Sphere.
Hallowed Fountain, Mutavault, Sphinx's Revelation. Revelation, not the worst card right now, but it actually, his life total is his library.
Matt's going to take the Revelation. If he doesn't take the Revelation, I don't see how he deals with the Jace. He'll get milled for 10 again. The question is how much to Revelation for. So assume you draw the Detention Sphere, you're going to need 3 lands to cast it. Matt has a total of 11 lands, so that gives him 8 lands to work with. And can he afford to play around any counter spells?
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
He really doesn't have many cards left in his deck, is another problem facing him.
You see him organizing his mana, saying, if I can rev, how much do I rev for? I gotta find Detention Sphere to get rid of this Jace. So now here's a new Jace.
Yeah, so he's trying to find the Detention Sphere for as little mana as possible, and rather than try that large Revelation, it looks like he's just going to try to Jace for it again.
Aetherling. Easy split, I think.
Yeah, interesting here, well, he's going to go for the Aetherling. I don't think he has any expectation that it's going to resolve.
Yeah.
And I'm not even positive it erases the Jace. But it's his only line, so he's going to go for it.
So there is Aetherling. Does that resolve? How many cards you got there?
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 cards.
2 activations.
Yep. Remember, on the first activation, if Matt gets to swing with an Aetherling, he gets to knock out the Jace.
Yeah. That's the key here. As 19 is the confirmed count. Well done. Well done. I don't think it's the first time you've asked someone for a deck count before.
No. All right. So the mill
10
for
cards
10
turned.
leaves 9 left in Matt's deck. No, actually, when you play these decks, sometimes.
Oh boy.
Uh-oh, second Jace.
Yeah, and that is gonna do it. So Bradley Burke is gonna defeat Matthew Nass 2-0. Esper Control defeating blue-white control. Having black cards looks to be the way to get an advantage in this Sphinx's Revelation mirror.
Yeah, we saw how